First things first. If you're familiar with this introduction, feel free to skip ahead until the trigger warning for our racist, hate-filled image of the day appears on screen. Otherwise, let me tell you. In each of these videos, I give away a t-shirt from my website, UnionOfTruth.org. That t-shirt goes to whichever comment in the comment section scores the highest on my double-secret proprietary rating scale, and they'll get to pick whichever design they want from the website. Mind you, I give away a t-shirt if the video gets at least 5,000 views and 50 unique comments by the time I start making my next video. I intend to make these videos 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Official rules are posted just below the like and subscribe buttons. Now, unless you're already fully aware of the following 9 facts, or you have a completely open mind and seek to expand your worldview, these videos might not be for you. Fact number 1. All of our society's root-level structural institutions are controlled by psychopathic parasites who intend to utterly subjugate us. And that's putting it mildly. Fact number 2. No one is coming to save us from them. If we don't take matters into our own hands, we will be utterly subjugated. Fact number 3. We are quickly running out of time to prevent such an outcome. Fact number 4. In order to prevent our subjugation, we need a viable plan of action. Fact number 5. There is no quick fix. A viable plan will need to be very detailed and will require that people must go outside of their comfort zone in order to comprehend it. Fact number 6. As an aspect of its viability, the plan must not require that everyone fully comprehends it in order to follow it. Fact number 7. Since the plan must not require that everyone fully comprehends it in order to follow it, leaders will be needed to properly inform and correctly guide fellow citizens who won't put forth the effort to fully comprehend the plan. Fact number 8. Leaders will need to fully comprehend the plan. Fact number 9. Exemplary leaders are committed to empowering those whom they lead. Exemplary leaders lead by example. And for those of you who are still with me, here's a 10th fact. This book contains a viable plan. The purpose of these videos is to disseminate the information provided in this book and to start an ongoing dialogue about all things related to the plan. You can download a free copy of this book in PDF format from UnionOfTruth.org without signing up for anything or filling anything out. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping you'll take me up on my simple 10-page challenge. It works like this. Read the first 10 pages of the book and fully investigate all of the links that are offered in order to discover the following. 1. Am I functioning from a valid conceptual foundation? 2. Have I done enough legitimate research to qualify as someone whose opinion is worthy of consideration? 3. Does the book actually provide a viable and fully detailed plan to thwart the science of fiction? Quite simple, and certainly not too much to ask of any red-blooded American patriot. One last thing. Those of you who are wondering, who is this guy? Should be sure to check out my video entitled, Who is this guy? Please, let us know exactly what you found most hateful and oppressive about that underhand image. Your feedback is vital to our ongoing mission of greater understanding. All right, In this episode, we're going to go through part 3 of the section called the Federal Reserve. More specifically, we're going to go through part 2 of the dissent that was written by Supreme Court Justice Stephen Johnson Field for the case Juilliard v. Greenman. As to the terms to borrow money, where, I would ask, does the court find any authority for giving to them a different interpretation in the Constitution from what they receive when used in other instruments, as in the charters of municipal bodies, or of private corporations, or in the contracts of individuals? They are not ambiguous. They have a well-settled meaning in other instruments. If the court may change that in the Constitution, so it may the meaning of all other clauses, and the powers which the government may exercise will be found declared not by plain words in the organic law, but by words of a new significance resting in the minds of the judges. Until some authority beyond the alleged claim and practice of the sovereign governments of Europe be produced, I must believe that the terms have the same meaning in all instruments, wherever they are used. That they mean a power only to contract for a loan of money upon considerations to be agreed between the parties. The conditions of the loan, or whether any particular security shall be given to the lender, are matters of arrangement between the parties. They do not concern anyone else. They do not imply that the borrower can give to his promise to refund the money any security to the lender outside of property or rights which he possesses. The transaction is completed when the lender parts with his money and the borrower gives his promise to pay at the time and in the manner and with the securities agreed upon. Whatever stipulations may be made to add to the value of the promise or to secure its fulfillment must necessarily be limited to the property, rights, and privileges which the borrower possesses. Whether he can add to his promises any element which will induce others to receive them beyond the security which he gives for their payment depends upon his power to control such element. If he has a right to put a limitation upon the use of other persons' property or to enforce an extraction of some benefit from them, he may give such privilege to the lender. But if he has no right thus to interfere with the property or possession of others, of course, he can give none. It will hardly be pretended that the government of the United States has any power to enter into an engagement that, as security for its notes, the lender shall have special privileges with respect to the visible property of others, shall be able to occupy a portion of their land or their houses, and thus interfere with the possession and use of their property. If the government cannot do that, how can it step in and say, as a condition of loaning money, that the lender shall have a right to interfere with the contracts between private parties? A large proportion of the property of the world exists in contracts, and the government has no more right to deprive one of their value by legislation operating directly upon them than it has a right to deprive one of the value of any visible and tangible property. No one, I think, will pretend that individuals or corporations possess the power to impart to their evidences of indebtedness any quality by which the holder will be able to affect the contracts of other parties, strangers to the loan. Nor would anyone pretend that Congress possesses the power to impart any such quality to the notes of the United States, except from the clause authorizing it to make laws necessary and proper to the execution of its powers. That clause, however, does not enlarge the expressly designated powers. It merely states what Congress could have done without its insertion in the Constitution. Without it, Congress could have adopted any appropriate means to borrow, but that can only be appropriate for that purpose which has some relation of fitness to the end, which has respect to the terms essential to the contract, or to the securities which the borrower may furnish for the repayment of the loan. The quality of legal tender does not touch the terms of the contract. That is complete without it. Nor does it stand as a security for the loan, for a security is a thing pledged, over which the borrower has some control, or in which he holds some interest. The argument presented by the advocates of legal tender is, in substance, this: the object of borrowing is to raise funds. The addition of the quality of legal tender to the notes of the government will induce parties to take them, and funds will thereby be more readily loaned. But the same thing may be said of the addition of any other quality which would give to the holder of the notes some advantage over the property of others, as, for instance, that the notes should serve as a pass on the public conveyances of the country, or as a ticket to places of amusement, or should exempt his property from state and municipal taxation, or entitle him to the free use of the telegraph lines, or to a percentage from the revenues of private corporations. The same consequence, a ready acceptance of the notes, would follow, and yet no one would pretend that the addition of privileges of this kind with respect to the property of others, over which the borrower has no control, would be in any sense an appropriate measure to the execution of the power to borrow. Undoubtedly, the power to borrow includes the power to give evidences of the loan in bonds, treasury notes, or in such other form as may be agreed between the parties. These may be issued in such amounts as will fit them for circulation, and for that purpose may be made payable to bearer and transferable by delivery. Experience has shown that the form best fitted to secure their ready acceptance is that of notes payable to bearer, in such amounts as may suit the ability of the lender. The government, in substance, says to parties with whom it deals, "Lend us your money, or furnish us with your products or your labor, and we will ultimately pay you. And, as evidence of it, we will give you our notes, in such form and amount as may suit your convenience, and enable you to transfer them. We will also receive them for certain demands due to us." In all this matter, there is only a dealing between the government and the individuals who trust it. The transaction concerns no others. The power which authorizes it is a very different one from a power to deal between parties to private contracts in which the government is not interested, and to compel the receipt of these promises to pay in place of the money for which the contracts stipulated. This latter power is not an incident to the former. It is a distinct and far greater power. There is no legal connection between the two, between the power to borrow from those willing to lend and the power to interfere with the independent contracts of others. The possession of this latter power would justify the interference of the government with any rights of property of other parties, under the pretense that its allowance to the holders of the notes would lead to their more ready acceptance, and thus furnish the needed means. The power vested in Congress to coin money does not, in my judgment, fortify the position of the court as its opinion affirms. So far from deducing from that power any authority to impress the notes of the government with the quality of legal tender, its existence seems to me inconsistent with the power to make anything but coin a legal tender. The meaning of the terms, quote, "to coin money," unquote, is not at all doubtful. It is to mold metallic substances into forms convenient for circulation and to stamp them with the impress of the government authority indicating their value with reference to the unit of value established by law. Coins are pieces of metal of definite weight and value, stamped such by the authority of the government. If any doubt could exist that the power has reference to metallic substances only, it would be removed by the language which immediately follows, authorizing Congress to regulate the value of money thus coined and of foreign coin, and also by clauses making a distinction between coin and the obligations of the general government and of the states. Thus, in the clause authorizing Congress, quote, to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States, unquote, a distinction is made between the obligations and the coin of the government. Money is not only a medium of exchange, but it is a standard of value. Nothing can be such standard which has not intrinsic value or which is subject to frequent changes in value. From the earliest period in the history of civilized nations, we find pieces of gold and silver used as money. These metals are scattered over the world in small quantities. They are susceptible of division, capable of easy impression, have more value in proportion to weight and size, and are less subject to loss by wear and abrasion than any other material possessing these qualities. It requires labor to obtain them. They are not dependent upon legislation or the caprices of the multitude. They cannot be manufactured or decreed into existence, and they do not perish by lapse of time. They have, therefore, naturally, if not necessarily, become throughout the world a standard of value. In exchange for pieces of them, products requiring an equal amount of labor are readily given. When the product and the piece of metal represent the same labor, or an approximation to it, they are freely exchanged. There can be no adequate substitute for these metals, says Mr. Webster in a speech made in the House of Representatives in 1815. Quote, the circulating medium of a commercial community must be that which is also the circulating medium of other commercial communities, or must be capable of being converted into that medium without loss. It must also be able to not only pass in payments and receipts among individuals in the same society and nation, but to adjust and discharge the balance of exchanges between different nations. It must be something which has a value abroad as well as at home, by which foreign as well as domestic debts can be satisfied. The precious metals alone answer these purposes. They alone, therefore, are money, and whatever else is to perform the functions of money must be their representative, and capable of being turned into them at will. So long as bank paper retains this quality, it is a substitute for money. Divested of this, nothing can give it that character. End quote. The clause to coin money must be read in connection with the prohibition upon the states to make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. The two taken together clearly show that the coins to be fabricated under the authority of the general government, and, as such, to be a legal tender for debts, are to be composed principally, if not entirely, of the metals of gold and silver. Coins of such metals are necessarily a legal tender to the amount of their respective values, without any legislative enactment, and the statute of the United States, providing that they shall be such tender, is only declaratory of their effect when offered in payment. When the Constitution says, therefore, that Congress shall have the power to coin money, interpreting that clause with the prohibition upon the states, it says it shall have the power to make coins of the precious metals a legal tender, for that alone which is money can be a legal tender. If this be the true import of the language, nothing else can be made a legal tender. We all know that the value of the notes of the government in the market, and in the commercial world generally, depends upon their convertibility on demand into coin, and as confidence in such convertibility increases or diminishes, so does the exchangeable value of the notes vary. So far from becoming themselves standard of value by reason of the legislative declaration to that effect, Their own value is measured by the facility with which they can be exchanged into that which alone is regarded as money by the commercial world. They are promises of money, but they are not money in the sense of the Constitution. The term money is used in that instrument in several clauses. In the one authorizing Congress to borrow money, in the one authorizing Congress to coin money, in the one declaring that no money shall be drawn from the Treasury but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and in the one declaring that no state shall coin money. And it is a settled rule of interpretation that the same term occurring in different parts of the same instrument shall be taken in the same sense unless there is something in the context indicating that a different meaning was intended. Now, to coin money is, as I have said, to make coins out of metallic substances, and the only money the value of which Congress can regulate is coined money, either of our mints or of foreign countries. It should seem, therefore, that to borrow money is to obtain a loan of coin money, that is, money composed of the precious metals, representing value in the purchase of property and payment of debts. Between the promises of the government, designated as its securities, and this money, the Constitution draws a distinction, which disappears in the opinion of the court. The opinion not only declares that it is in the power of Congress to make the notes of the government a legal tender and a standard of value, but that under the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof, Congress may issue coins of the same denominations as those now already current, but of less intrinsic value by reason of containing a less weight of the precious metals, and thereby enable debtors to discharge their debts by payment of coins of less real value. This doctrine is put forth as in some way a justification of the legislation authorizing the tender of nominal money in place of real money in payment of debts. Undoubtedly, Congress has the power to alter the value of coins issued, either by increasing or diminishing the alloy they contain. So it may alter at its pleasure their denominations. It may hereafter call a dollar an eagle, and it may call an eagle a dollar. But if it be intended to assert that Congress can make the coins changed, the equivalent of those having a greater value in their previous condition, and compel parties contracting for the latter to receive coins with diminished value, I must be permitted to deny any such authority. Any such declaration on its part would be not only utterly inoperative in fact, but a shameful disregard of its constitutional duty. As I said on a former occasion, the power to coin money, as declared by this court, is a great trust devolved upon Congress, carrying with it the duty of creating and maintaining a uniform standard of value throughout the Union. And it would be a manifest abuse of this trust to give to the coins issued by its authority any other than their real value. By debasing the coins, when once the standard is fixed, is meant giving to the coins by their form and impress a certificate of their having a relation to that standard different from that which in truth they possess. In other words, giving to the coins a false certificate of their value. Well, that's it for today. Let's meet back here on Monday, and we'll go through part 4 of the section called the Federal Reserve. Till then, take good care of yourself, and remember, objectivity, logic, fidelity, because absurdity knows no bounds.